All right, folks, we have some bombshell breaking news. According to leaks from within the Trump administration, Donald Trump is on the verge of prosecuting his third political opponent in as many weeks, 3 weeks, this time against his own former national security advisor, John Bolton, who has become a prominent Trump critic. And we have to talk about this, but before we do, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, let's take a look at this. This is from MSNBC. They are reporting this update provided by at least two sources from within the Trump administration. Criminal charges against John Bolton expected as early as next week. Federal prosecutors are considering filing charges against the former Trump national security advisor as either a rushed complaint or an indictment. The acting U.S. attorney in Maryland is moving forward to quickly seek criminal charges against Donald Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, according to two people familiar with the case. A complaint or indictment could come as early as next week, said the sources, who spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss sensitive matters without authorization. A grand jury in Maryland has been hearing evidence for several weeks related to claims that Bolton improperly kept classified national security information in his Maryland home. But the pace of the case has recently sped up, the two people said. If Bolton is criminally charged, as attorneys in the Maryland office expect, he would be the third of Trump's perceived enemies to face federal prosecution under Trump's Department of Justice in a matter of a few weeks. Bolton, whom Trump fired from his first administration, has been a vocal critic of the president. His lawyer said he did nothing improper. Unlike the widespread resistance career prosecutors in Virginia have shown to Trump's pressure campaign to charge former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James, career prosecutors in Maryland consider charges against Bolton to have some factual merit, people said. What a relief. Hey, you know those two of the three? Total bullshit. It's just hurt Comey and James. Well, this one at least has some factual basis to it. What a relief that the Trump administration is finally considering a prosecution with at least some factual merit. Kelly Hayes, the acting U.S. attorney for Maryland, has told Justice Department colleagues she believes there is a reasonable basis to pursue charges against Bolton, the people said. In Virginia, the first U.S. attorney installed by Trump resigned under pressure after he pushed back against charging Comey and James. Both were indicted after Trump made his personal attorney, Lindsay Halligan, the top prosecutor in the Commonwealth. She single-handedly presented evidence to grand juries in both cases. Ed Martin, who served briefly as Trump's acting attorney in the U.S. District of Columbia and whom Trump has since named to head the Justice Department's Weaponization Working Group, has met multiple times with Hayes to monitor the Bolton case. According to one of the people familiar with the status of the case, Hayes and her team are weighing whether to file charges against Bolton in a rushed complaint, a court filing that would allow the office to lodge criminal allegations quickly and seek a grand jury indictment at a later date. FBI agents conducted a surprise raid of Bolton's home in Bethesda, Maryland on September 22nd in what sources said at the time was a search for suspected classified records. The search warrant was based on some information provided by the CIA and approved by a federal judge. On the same day of the search, the FBI director Kash Patel circulated a social media post on X that read, quote, "No one is above the law," at FBI agents on the mission. Bolton's attorney, Abby Lowell, has repeatedly said the documents with classified markings kept by Bolton dated back to the George W. Bush administration when Bolton served as U.S. ambassador to the United Nations and would be typical of those kept by a longtime government employee. Quote, "An objective and thorough review will show nothing inappropriate was stored or kept by Ambassador Bolton," Lowell said in a statement last month. Neither Lowell nor the Justice Department immediately returned requests for comment on Friday. Last month, a judge unsealed a heavily redacted version of the affidavit of probable cause used by the FBI to support its search of the Bolton home. Page 12 of the document has a heading titled, quote, "Hack of Bolton's AOL account by foreign entity." That section is entirely blacked out. Two people familiar with the matter told MSNBC that the redacted section describes how the U.S. government discovered Bolton's AOL emails during intelligence collection directed at an unnamed foreign government. What was found, they said, fueled an investigation into whether Bolton has mishandled classified information that began during the Biden administration. Sources said that the sensitivity of how the government came by those records was one factor that slowed the Bolton investigation. By moving forward, they said, the United States has now revealed to a foreign government that it has access to specific systems. A revelation, the sources said, that is likely more damaging, to U.S. national security than any secret Bolton may have revealed. So, folks, this is huge. Now, listen, as I said before at the time, if John Bolton, unlawfully and intentionally kept or tried to conceal classified information, that does merit an investigation. The problem is, as is always the case with Trump, is that Trump has repeatedly targeted John Bolton publicly and privately, both as president and as a candidate and then as president again for potential prosecution. He has made it a mission of his that his goal is to get Bolton prosecuted because he doesn't like John Bolton. That's the problem in this particular instance. If Trump kept his mouth shut, if Trump weren't so publicly vindictive, if he had not made demands publicly and privately for Bolton to be punished simply for criticizing him, then perhaps a situation where he did have documents with some classified markings, although Abby Lowell says, this is typical of a U.S. ambassador and all these things, that this might be a more black and white issue where there is at least a perfectly reasonable basis by which to prosecute. The problem is that Trump has muddied the waters here, and we can't unmuddy the waters. We can't say, well, it doesn't matter what Trump has said. No, it does matter. It does matter. And if the shoe were on the other foot, MAGA would be saying the same thing about Trump, right? Consider the fact that New York Attorney General Letitia James, when she was running for office, indicated that she would seek to prosecute Donald Trump, who, she had notorious, Trump was well known at the time for being quite a litigious figure in New York City at the time and in New York politics and in New York law. And it has been suspected for years in a matter of debate, as to whether or not Trump violated the law with respect to real estate ventures and things of that nature. But the right was understandably furious at Letitia James for making those comments. Now, Trump has made infinitely more comments about prosecuting John Bolton than Letitia James made as a candidate about prosecuting Trump. And this is the problem. Now the shoe is on the other foot, and MAGA is just running roughshod with this. They don't give a damn. This is about Trump trying to collect scalps. He's wanted James Comey. He's wanted Letitia James. He's wanted John Bolton, and he looks like he's poised to get this third scalp. He's also targeted Adam Schiff, Hillary Clinton, so many others. This is huge. And of course, then the question becomes, well, does Bolton have a case to make to try to get the case dismissed for malicious prosecution if he is indeed indicted or if there is indeed a prosecution which takes place? Well, from what I've read, that's really hard to accomplish. It's really hard to get cases thrown out by way of, successfully arguing malicious prosecution. But Trump makes those arguments relatively easy for defendants like James Comey and John Bolton to make. Because very rarely do you have such egregious, blatant, consistent messages from the prosecutorial authority, in this case Donald Trump, whom all these prosecutors work for in the end. Trump has made so many public comments on camera, into microphones, on the phone, in phone interviews, Truth Social statements. That's the problem here. Of the three cases, Letitia James, James Comey, John Bolton, this appears, based on preliminary evidence, to be by far the strongest of the three cases in terms of a legitimate case to make. That's part of the problem. If you're MAGA, you should be pissed at Trump for muddying the waters about this, for running his mouth and making it so that it's still, even here, hard to give him the benefit of the doubt. And I'm not inclined to give him the benefit of the doubt. I have no reason to. And judges and juries and grand juries might have a hard time with that as well. So this is the new reporting, according to the leaks from the Trump administration. They believe that of the three cases brought against Trump's political opponents, this one is at least has some factual basis for it. But Trump has really muddied the waters on this, and it sure seems that it's all about pursuing his political opponents, somebody who used to be loyal to him, who now has become a Trump critic. And I'll remind you, not only has Trump said all this shit about John Bolton, but when Trump got back into power, one of the first things he did was he suspended the U.S. protection, the U.S. security protection provided to John Bolton by President Biden. Remember that Bolton is under threat from, I believe, Iran, because John Bolton helped Donald Trump arrange for the assassination of Iranian General Soleimani. So because Bolton worked for Trump and acted on Trump's behalf in Trump term one, Bolton's life is now in danger by the very foreign adversary that he helped target on Trump's order. Hey, I need you to do this thing for me. Okay, I'm going to do it. Well, now my life is in danger because you told me to do this. And now you take my protection away from me out of spite? I don't know how that sort of shit will factor in, but I'm sure if it's possible, the lawyer will bring this up. Like, hey, not only does he want my guy prosecuted, my client prosecuted, he's actually trying to get my client killed. He's trying to make my client more vulnerable to assassination by, hostile foreign powers like Iran, just to provide some context. So, pretty ominous every which way. And again, it sure seems like Donald Trump is on the cusp of having his third political opponent prosecuted in 3 weeks. He's on a roll. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.